Alright, today we got another top 5 PvP set video. Today we're going with underrated sets. Let me just say that, a lot of people are going to disagree with this, right? That's the tricky part about making these videos, especially with one like this. Basically, it's full opinionated based, right? Underrated sets, top 5 underrated sets. So these are my personal top 5 underrated sets in subclassing. Uh, plus honorable mentions. And we'll just kind of get straight into it with number 5. Number 5, this is my sleeper pick. This is my personal favorite, right? Is Warrior's Fury. This set is so outdated, it's not even funny. This was the meta like literally 8 years ago. But the set's actually still really good even after it got nerfed. The only downfall of this is that it has to be double barred. Well, I guess it doesn't have to, but it's way better double barred. But it does give a lot of weapon and spell damage. Basically, if you don't know what to do, it's health, stamina, weapon, and spell damage. And the 5-piece, when you take damage, you get a stack of, I guess we'll just call it a stack of Fury. Basically, you get 24 weapon damage for 5 seconds, stacking up to 20 times, which is 480. But this set gets buffed by your Major and Minor Brutality. If you're running Daedric Spear, it gets buffed by the Daedric Spear passive. If you're running Medium Armor, it gets buffed by the Medium Armor bonuses. If you're running Minor Brutality, it gets buffed by that. If a continuous attack will buff it too. Any weapon damage percentage buffs the 5-piece of this set. So instead of 480, it ends up as like 600 or 700. Depending on what you're using, right? So the set is super underrated. Especially, it's mostly like for 1vxers, right? If you want to make a 1vx off meta build, right, or something along those lines, you can use Warrior's Fury, and you can be a GIGACHAD like I was when I used it. So it's a really good set. People sleep on it because it's old. And with such a strong meta we have now, nobody ever wants to come off and use some older sets or some different sets. Everyone just uses the same thing. Every build is Rally, Essence, Orders, which I don't blame them, right? It's if you're not wearing at least Rally, you get bursted, right? And if you're not using Essence or Orders and Monomyth, you're just not hitting as hard as everybody else. But you don't have to do it like that, right? I mean, if you're really that good, or even if you're like if you're that good at Xing or that good of a player, you can live without these things and you can use off meta. And even if you're zerging, you can still use some off meta sets just because you're stacked with so many people. You have a healer, you have whatever. If you're running somebody else who has rally, then that's when it really gets fun because now you don't have to worry about having rally yourself and you can do some crazier off meta build. So that's what I have at number 5 is Warrior's Fury. Do not sleep on it. At number 4, we have War Maiden. I know, this one's crazy. War Maiden, if you don't know what it does, light armor set. Fury's heavy, this one's light. 657 crit chance, 1096 mag, weapon and spell damage, and then add 600 weapon and spell damage to your magic abilities. The reason I put this at number 4 is because the things you can do with it, and it'll buff everything at all times on your front bar by 600, well actually by 729 because you get the 129 weapon and spell damage with the 4-piece because you're not using this 5 body always. So it's really 729 you're getting buffed. Basically, if you're running mag jabs, if you have crescent, if you have spec bow, if you have beetles, right, any of those abilities, they're all magic damage. So it'll buff all of those, right? It'll buff all of those. Blood for blood even, it'll buff that too. Ranged javelin, crystal frag, a lot of the things that are used a lot get buffed. So this is a really good set too. There's not much to say about it. It goes crazy, man. It goes crazy. Don't sleep on War Maiden. It's not a bad set. It can be really fun. It's off meta damage set. You only got to run it on your front bar. It is light armor. It's not going to be better than Oak Fathers, but it's still underrated. It's really fun to use. Coming in at number 3, we have Daedric Trickery. If you don't know what Daedric Trickery does, health, stamina, magic align. And then 5-piece, when you do damage, you gain a random major buff for 21 seconds every 9 seconds, which can be Major Expedition, Protection, Mending, Heroism, or Vitality. This works really well on full off meta. Like, if you're running a pure class this is actually going to work pretty well. Because, Major Vitality, the reason this set has fell out is because Major Protection you get from Monomyth, and Major Vitality you get from Scribe. It's boring with everybody running that. Not everybody always wants to run that. These are underrated sets. So if you want to make off meta, you use an underrated set. Obviously, if you want to use, there's nothing right now that's just going to straight up be stronger than the meta, unfortunately. So this is more of like off meta type sets, right? So maybe that's what I'll name the video instead. But this one is still really good. So like I said, if you want to run off meta, if you don't want to run the Scribe Major Vitality, even if you do and you want to take off Vitality, you can. And if you don't want to use Monomyth, you can, right? If you're like me and you don't use Race Against Time, and you usually don't have Major Expedition, you can use Daedric Trickery. So Daedric Trickery fills a lot of slots, gives you a whole lot of healing, therefore making you kind of tankier. Plus the Major Protection, obviously. So the set's not bad. And I guess it's not super impossible to live without Rally, but it's like playing ESO on hard mode. So like I said, it's always better to play with somebody who has Rally if you like to use these things, but it's not impossible to do without. I've done it before in this meta. Like I said, it's just like playing ESO on hard mode because you feel so squishy. But it's never impossible, man. Don't count yourself out. Don't doubt yourself. You can do it. So, Daedric Trickery, really good back bar set. You can probably pair this with any of the... Well, you pair this with War Maiden, and you might use some meta skill lines, but you can have off meta sets, So, even that's more fun than just using straight up meta. So, anyways, we'll get into number 2. At number 2, we have Twice-Fanged Serpent. So this set got a buff in update 47. It is now, in my opinion, better than Shattered Fate. It's kind of a no-brainer. It basically gives the same amount of pen with the 2 and 4 piece. If you don't know what it does, 129 weapon spell damage, 1500 pen, 657 crit chance, and then 5 piece, you get 2,305 offensive penetration, and then when you deal damage, stacking up to 5 times, you get another 660. So you get about 7k, plus you get the weapon and spell damage on both bars at all times, and then you get a little bit extra crit chance. So I really like the 2 and the 4 piece on this, opposed to just getting all the pen from Shattered. It does a lot of pen. If you want to do a flurry build, if you want to use a jab build, if you have literally any dots, it's going to be super easy to have 100% uptime on this. So it's not a worry keeping uptime on this, on your front bar. It's going to be a breeze, So this is more of kind of like pressure type spammables, or like you have a dot. You're not going to use this on the burst build like you would maybe Shattered. So I guess they kind of fill 2 different spots. But this is super off meta set. Nobody's running this, even though it's actually really strong now. I still need to farm it personally on live. I, dueled some people on PTS. Absolutely steamrolled them like I always do. But Twice-Fanged Serpent, do not sleep on it. Really good set from the trial, which I think is like super old and easy. So, there's not even a perfected. That's how old this one is, right? There's no perfected to this. So, Twice-Fanged Serpent, you want a pen, use this one, right? Jabs, flurry, if you have a dot, whatever it is, Twice-Fanged Serpent, man. Getting into our honorable mentions right here. Coming in our first honorable mention, we have Critical Riposte. This is a crafted set, so it's really nice. It's a really good defensive set, actually, right? You, unironically, yes, you can run this on the back bar, right? You don't have to run this double barred. Right, if you don't know what it does, it gives a bunch of crit resistance, 820 or 850 based off just a 2 and 4 piece, and then you get max health. And the 5 piece, when you take crit damage, basically you reduce their spell crit and their damage by 10%. So really good set. It can apply to somebody for 9 seconds, and it can happen to somebody every 10 seconds. So in reality, it'll have a 1 second downtime, but it isn't bad for an off meta defense set. This probably should have been my top 5 defensive sets, honestly. Super off meta, super underrated, and it makes you really tanky. So there's nothing wrong with this one, right? Especially when you reduce their crit chance by 6%. It's not bad, right? It is not bad at all. So really good. There's nothing to it, man. It's just a really good defensive set on the back bar. Let's get into the next honorable mention, which we have. I don't even know because I took it off. Farstrider, that's right. We have Farstrider. Really good set, actually. Just not in the meta. If you don't know what this does, gives you armor, gives you stamina, gives you crit chance, and then when you use a teleport, blink, pool, whatever, right, you decrease their crit resistance by 40%, and then increase yours equal to the same amount. It can happen every 7 seconds, and it's for 10 seconds, so it can have 100% uptime. Really good set. The only downfall of this is you have to use a gap closer, which a lot of people don't like to use. I personally like to use them, so I don't have an issue with it. But I believe this is also a medium armor set. So, medium armor is the best armor in the game. Farstrider, there you go. Another off-meta set for you. This would probably be used on the front bar, not the back bar. But you probably could get away with it on the back bar. If you have some crazy off-meta build with Lotus Fan on the back bar, shoot, go crazy, man. And our last honorable mention, we have good old Clever Alchemist. Bunch of health, bunch of weapon and spell damage. Basically gives you 800 weapon and spell damage. This one is, it has quite a bit of downtime, but it still gives you a big burst window, right? Could you imagine running this with Acuity? Brother, if you have this in Acuity on, and you drop down to Northern, everybody is dying. Nobody stands a chance. What are they going to do versus a Clever Alchemist, Acuity, Northern Storm? They're going to do nothing. They're just going to die. So, Clever Alchemist, also really good. Nothing much to say about Clever Alchemist. And then we'll get into our number one. Coming in at number one, we have Coral Riptide. Coral Riptide also, for PvE, I believe it was a nerf. We're not really focused on PvE. We're focused on PvP. PvP, it got a buff. So even though it gives less weapon damage and spell damage as it did before Update 47, it's a lot easier to hit the cap. Before, it was 33%. Now, it's 50% that you have to hit the stamina. Basically, if you don't know what this does, you get crit chance and you get weapon and spell damage as your 2 and 4. And then the 5, if you have perfected, you get another line of crit chance, giving you a total of like 5% crit chance. And then you get up to 600 weapon and spell damage based on your missing stamina, reaching at a maximum of 50%. Which, by the way, if you don't know, is also, just like Fury, buffed by Minor, Major Brutality, Continuous Attack, Medium Armor, and any percent bonuses to your weapon and spell damage. The set gives, literally, I don't know how the math works. But when I used it on my Jabplar, I have a video out on that, I went from, 5,100 to, 7k weapon damage. Don't ask me the math. I don't know how it works. But that's like a whole almost 2,000, difference there. It's crazy. The amount of weapon and spell damage you get from this set is insane. If you have a way to double bar it, you can get a lot of healing, extra healing. I use it only on the front bar, so it can go either way, right? It's not a back bar set, even though it'd be pretty interesting if somebody did use it as a back bar set. That way, they can get the 600 weapon and spell damage plus for their healing. That would be pretty cool. But the set, it's really strong now. It is really strong. Twice-Fanged really strong. This one's even stronger, right? This could arguably make its way into the meta. I would not be surprised. It gives that much damage that it can give you up to Oakfather type numbers, right? It's crazy. It is crazy, especially hardcore PvEers that, I want to go to PvP, but I don't want to use Essence and Rally. Everybody's using that. Well, guess what? You have Perfected Coral Riptide, most likely. You go ahead and use that bad boy. It's crazy. Perfected Coral Riptide is my number one, I guess, off-meta or underrated set. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. Peace.